so much for a quick meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Ready? Okay, I'd like to call the November 12th, 2020 Lakeland Shores City Council meeting to order. Kim, would you mind taking roll call?
Councilmember Schroeder.
Here.
Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Councilmember Bischoff.
Here.
Mayor Zeller.
Here. If you'd join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our next item is adopting the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I second the motion.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call for a vote. All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Our next item is the consent agenda. We have 3 items on there. Item A is approved monthly claims. Item B is August 6th, 2020 City Council meeting minutes. And item C is canvass of election. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I will second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? We'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Carries. Our next item is public comments. Is there anyone that's joining us this evening that would like to make a comment? And if so, if I could ask you to go to the microphone and give your address for the record, and feel free to share with us what you'd like to share with us. Well, they don't always come. I guess I'd mentioned to the sheriff that I thought it would be a good idea for them to be here, but if they get a call or something, then they don't come, or we see them a little bit later. But I did specifically call the sheriff and talk to him after you and I had spoken. But if you'd like to share anything with us now, that'd be great.
What do you want me to do over here?
Just say your name and address for the record.
My name is Sue Haynes from 313 Quinlan Avenue South. And I specifically wanted to discuss if there's a problem around here in regards to burglaries or robberies or break-ins or whatever. And I've requested a police report, which I have not received. So other than the officers the evening of the robbery, I've not spoken to anybody other than the county attorney.
Sue, do you mind, just for everybody's benefit, you don't have to tell the full story, but your home was broken into and there was an attempted robbery, and that's what you're referring
Oh,
to?
yes.
I'm not sure everyone in the room is aware of it.
It was the night of October 21st, and I know we had left our side service door to our garage unlocked, as we've been residents here for 40 years. And the person went through my car and proceeded to walk right into our house, up the stairs, it's a split entry, and proceeded to take the cell phone off of the counter as he walked down into our bedroom and right into our bedroom, and pulled a laptop off of the desk, and of course all the things that are attached fell, and that's what woke both of us up, and Mike jumped up and chased him out of the house. So I don't know. I would be interested to know if these are local people that you're having trouble with, or are these people coming from Minneapolis, and I don't know. They were on foot. I'm looking for some answers.
I can just repeat what I was told, but I think the fact that you haven't received a copy of the report, that seems like a reasonable request. So I don't know, can we request a copy of the report and get it to her?
We need numbers.
What do you mean
Do you
number?
have the case number?
Yeah, I do at home. I didn't bring it with me.
Yeah, you should be able to do that right
Well,
over
and
the phone.
we've applied for it in writing and not gotten anything. And we've had the first hearing with the 18-year-old. Then there was a 17-year-old that was arrested and released to his mother the very next day. I don't know if these are local people or what.
That information will be redacted on the police report. They're minors.
Okay, minor stuff, they don't tell us anything. And there is no address listed on the 18-year-old.
I was told they were local for what it's worth.
Charming.
Yeah. I was told that it was somebody that's been on the radar screen in the past. They caught him quickly from what you shared and what I was told. But I got the impression it was more of an isolated incident than it was a recurring problem in the community.
Well, they had tried to get in to the house across the street.
Right.
They had tried to lift windows or something at Nick Meister's
That
house.
same evening. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Lakeland Auto Sales had cars either vandalized or broken into that night.
Okay.
Well, you
And-
should be able to, I was a public defender for years, and you should be able to find out who the county attorney is that's is charging this. If they've been charged, then it should be a burglary in the first degree since the people were at
Yes.
home. Okay, and generally speaking, it calls for a mandatory sentence of 4 years in prison for the adult, okay, which they serve about 2/3 of. Okay, it doesn't mean that that's what he's going to plead guilty to, but generally speaking, and if you're really, I was burglarized once in Afton, same type of situation, although I never knew it until the next morning and I realized my truck was gone. That, they're going to need you either with a victim statement, the county attorney, that is. So there should be no problem with finding out, who the county attorney is that it's been assigned to,
Okay.
and in Washington County. And if you're getting any problems with it, call up Pete Orbit. He's the most political person I know, and he certainly will probably do what he can do to make sure that you
Okay.
get that information.
We were notified about a first hearing. It lasted 2 minutes.
Yep.
And it went to omnibus,
All right.
and that's December 3rd. But we're still shook.
Yeah, I bet you are. Yeah.
And-
And, when is that, December 3rd? So there should be a victim advocate that's calling you from the,
Hasn't been.
well, I know they may not have gotten to you yet, but there should be a victim advocate calling to you because you don't know what's going to happen at the OH, and therefore it's always possible that a plea could be entered. It's not generally speaking where a plea is entered. So, get a little pushy. Call
All right.
the county attorney, Peter Orpit, and
Okay.
see what he has to say.
Okay. I know the guy's still in jail, and it's a $60,000
Yeah,
bond.
it's a serious charge. It's one thing a burglary 2 where nobody's at home,
Yeah.
but a burglary 1,
Yeah.
the
And
guidelines
we
call.
recovered our stuff. The
Right.
county had it for about 3 weeks.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, the
okay.
guy-
What's your address again?
313
313
Quinlan.
Quinlan Avenue South. So, thank you.
Thank you for coming and sharing your story so that we're all aware. Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Welcome.
Hello, Dennis Lund, 16555 First Street South. And a couple of comments. First of all, appreciate the way the whole council and Mr. Mayor participated in the last election, just finished. That was very nice to see our local government in action and communicating and so forth. That was very nice. Second item is, has any thought been given to having remote access available Zoom or GoToMeeting or something like that for council meetings, especially during the pandemic, to increase public participation.
I can answer that.
Okay.
And then I hope, is it a coincidence that you're here because we're going to talk about a short-term moratorium on auto dealers?
I'm not sure how you define coincidence, but yes, that's the main reason for my presence.
Okay, all right. I know that's an issue that's important to you, so I wanted to make sure that you stayed for that. But we were approached by the city of Lake St. Croix Beach and asked if we would allocate some of the CARES, is it the CARES
Act.
CARES Act funding that we received from the county and apply it towards improving their audiovisual system. And then it's my understanding that the new technology will allow you to live stream the meetings. I don't know if it will allow any interaction between watching it at home and what's taking place here, but it's my understanding you're going to be able to live stream them.
Live stream is one thing, but my main interest is to be able to, if something's going on here, that I can respond to the council and you, Mr. Mayor, in a timely fashion.
I
especially
don't
during the
know if
meeting.
it has that ability. Don, do you know?
I just talked to David this morning, Engstrom, and I don't know any more than you do at this point. So,
Okay.
That's just a request for future consideration. That's all
Sure.
I'm asking.
Yeah, frankly, I've never seen anybody other than if it's on a Zoom meeting, which we haven't held any of those. We've been doing it in this format because we generally draw a pretty small crowd.
Right.
But yeah, I'll ask Lake St. Croix Beach if there's going to be that ability.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anybody else? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Just approach the podium there, if you would.
Yep, hello, I'm Tim Hatton. I'm the new council member, I guess, elect. And I live in Lakeland Shores, obviously, on 3rd Street in Lenny Bozo's old house, the old mayor.
Oh,
Yeah, so.
I didn't realize that was an old mayor's house.
Yeah, Lenny. Yeah, he was the first mayor for like 35 years in Lakeland
Oh.
Shores. Yeah.
Cool.
Or so that's what I've heard.
Welcome. I did clarify with the clerk prior to the meeting that your term is officially starts in January.
Yep.
So you'd be sworn in January with everybody else. But I think we can, if you would get Kim your contact information, we can start copying you on some info.
Okay.
Just so that you're kind of up to speed on what's going on.
Okay.
We're pretty fortunate that it's a small community, so there's not a tremendous amount of stuff going on.
All right.
But look forward to having you being a part of the group.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comments? We'll move on to unfinished business. Item A, consideration of resolution number 2020-09, the 2021 final budget. Neil, would you like to comment?
Sure. There's really no changes from what we previously discussed with regard to the budget. In terms of total expenditures, we're looking at total expenditures about $3,000 greater than last year. However, the bulk of that, 75% of that, is in the way of a transfer to the street improvement fund. So our levy is going up proposed levy is going up by $4,800. The bulk of that increase is really going to go into the street improvement fund. And that continues to build and, in anticipation of future projects.
Right.
So it's, instead of having it be a lump sum where you're assessing residents, the city will be able to, pretty much pay cash plus avoid going into the debt market and incurring interest costs.
So from memory, we're just under a 3% increase.
That is correct.
And the lion's share of that increase is to
Going to the-
continue to bolster our street fund.
Correct.
Okay. Any comments or questions from council? Is there a motion to adopt that resolution? I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Kim, would you like to do that by roll call?
Councilmember Schroeder,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bischoff, Mayor Zeller.
Aye. Our next item is consideration of resolution number 2020-10, 2021 final levy. Anything to comment there?
Just as I said before, the levy's going up by $4,800, which is 3% with the bulk of that will be transferred into the street improvement fund.
So that brings our total annual general fund budget to 165,300.
Correct.
Okay. And anytime we talk about the budget, can you just, how are we looking year to date? I'm assuming that
Year to
we're
date,
gonna,
we're actually doing very, very well.
I would think we're going to be under budget.
You know, I mean, I look at it and we had the, building permit fees, the portion that the city keeps, were up $2,500.
Okay.
We had in the budget funds for legal services and assessor, and we have paid out $0. The other thing, and unless we have a huge snowstorm or a big street improvement bill coming up in the next month, and I don't foresee it, we've run considerably under budget for streets and drainage. So with those, I was looking at it, and we could probably come in the $20,000 range under budget.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Good.
And that's not including the CARES Act money,
That is not including the CARES Act money.
which is something we'll be talking about.
Correct.
Okay. I'd make a motion that we adopt that resolution for the final levy. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? You call for roll call, Kim?
Councilmember Schroeder,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bischoff,
Yes.
Mayor Zeller.
Aye. Resolution's adopted. Thank you. Thanks for all your hard work on that.
Welcome.
Item C here is public hearing. Kim, should I just go ahead and call the public hearing to order?
Yeah, we need a motion and a second to open that public hearing. Anyone can speak on the proposed ordinance and then close it up, and then you guys can discuss it.
Afterwards. So I'd make a motion that we call the public hearing to order. Is there a second?
I'll second
Call for a vote. All those in favor of opening the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye. Do you mind introducing the ordinance, Kim, and then we'll accept public comment?
I do not mind at all. Before you, Mayor and council members, is an ordinance to place an interim temporary moratorium on automobile lots in the city and directing a study to be conducted. It does have to be done by ordinance. It's, like I said, temporary. It's for a 6-month term. The moratorium does not have to go the entire 6 months. But this will allow the council to take a look at your zoning and your current ordinance, your land use in terms of car lots. In the past, we've had some amended CUPs and public hearings where people were kind of upset about more car lots in the city. So adopting this ordinance would allow you time just to take a look at it, perhaps amend your current land use, add some performance standards, put limits on it.
Would anybody like to comment during the public hearing on the proposed ordinance? Anybody? If I could ask you to come back to the podium, sir.
it. You bet. Dennis Lund, 16555 First Street South. Very brief proposed ordinance, and I understand it's an interim temporary sort of thing, so not a lot of detail, and that's what the study is going to help us figure out if we want to proceed with something more permanent. It's for 6 months. Is that something that can be extended after that time if we haven't figured out what we want to do at that point?
It can go up to a year, but I'm a procrastinator, so if I put it out there a year, we won't get to it until 11 months and 2 weeks. So I thought it'd be more appropriate to start with 6 months.
Okay, sounds good. So I should set my calendar for sometime in April. We'll
Yeah. Well, one would.
just a little bit.
Kim's awfully good. She's not a procrastinator, but I am. So
Okay. Are there currently any applications in process, or has anyone applied for?
to my understanding, no. Is that accurate, Kim?
That is accurate today.
Okay.
Although I have had inquiries.
Okay. There's a difference between an inquiry and somebody putting money down saying I want to apply.
Absolutely.
If
Okay.
somebody, if there was an application in the works, their application would move forward, even though we're putting a temporary stop on it. So the fact that we're doing the the moratorium, if an application comes forward after the council decides on the moratorium, it would have to wait.
Gotcha. So if we approve a temporary tonight, somebody comes in tomorrow, applies, they say, that's great, but they'll have to wait till we get past the
Correct.
temporary. Okay. And I'm glad to provide input to the study when it comes along. I look forward to doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor and council members, I will just note that the moratorium will not be in effect until the ordinance has been published in the legal newspaper. That's typically about 10 days, so if an application came in, we'd have to look at the timing on that.
Oh,
If your ordinance, your land use is revised regarding the car lots, use of car lots, there would be a public hearing required for that ordinance revision.
Thank you for the information. One comment, another location, another city in the area had an application pending while they were in the moratorium status, and they chose to put that application on hold. So apparently that was something that was legally permitted for them. I don't know if that would be for us or not. Yeah, I was kind of curious about that myself.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Any other public comments? I'd make a motion that we close the public hearing. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Public hearing's closed. Next item is item D, consideration of resolution number 2020-11. Resolution
Mayor,
for,
council members, you did not take action on the actual ordinance.
so is that, I'm sorry, after the public hearing? So
Yes.
it's the same agenda item?
Yeah,
My mistake.
that's okay.
Okay. So with that said, I would just comment that I'm in the commercial real estate business. Members of our company are involved in representing at least one commercial property here in town. There's another property that has announced it's closing its doors, so that property is going to be becoming available. And it just seemed appropriate to me that maybe we step back and make sure we had our I's dotted and T's crossed, and we knew what we wanted that ordinance to look like, and or how many dealerships we may or may not want. So that was the reason that I brought it forward, but I don't want to negatively impact the value of anyone's property either, and I guess that'd be another reason to try to move relatively quickly. Kim's already done a little bit of legwork. She checked with the city of Lakeland, as they have a planning consultant that reviewed that city's ordinance. So I don't know if we want to maybe get a copy of our ordinance and a copy of their ordinance as the next step, or if we want to have a workshop, or what we want to do. But if the council decides that this is something we want to pursue, that's where I was coming from on the issue.
I certainly think it's appropriate considering the number of cars I see out there. But, that are for sale in the neighborhood. And considering I have to turn onto 2nd Street North every day when I come home, I would just soon not see another one when I make the turn. So I think it's time we took some action on it, and I think that what we're doing at this point is what needs to happen. And I'm not sure how much of the study, how do you envision the study actually going?
I don't know if it's so much a study. That might be an overstatement. Kim?
Mayor and council members, the interim, the ordinance to place this interim hold on this use, that's the language that is needed. It is, you do need to study, and we will be studying in the sense that we will be looking at other cities' ordinances. We will be discussing some performance standards, what you're looking at limits or expansions, perhaps acreage size, minimums, that sort of thing. So it's an internal study. What we'll do is probably schedule a work session prior to the next regular council meeting, which we do not know at this point when that's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll take a look at other cities' ordinances and take that as a starting place.
Thank you.
I do find it rather interesting that one of our adjoining cities actually has a pretty complete ordinance. It's just that it wasn't necessarily being followed. So, but as I look at their ordinance, one of the prohibiting factors is the width of the lot. theirs are relatively narrow, which decreases the number of lots that qualify. Ours are pretty wide, so the majority of our lots, if we utilized their ordinance or similar language, I don't know that that is as restrictive as we may or may not want to be. So,
It's a good starting point to take a look at that ordinance.
yeah. Thoughts?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. So we need to make a motion to the interim ordinance.
Yes.
Is that by, that's not a resolution though, is it? So we can do regular?
It's an ordinance, number 2020-18.
I guess what my question may be better asked, do we need to do roll call?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we adopt the interim ordinance placing temporary moratorium on automobile lots for a period of 6 months. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Any discussion?
Councilmember Schroeder,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bashad,
Yes.
Mayor Zeller.
Yes. We'll move on to item D, consideration of resolution number 2020-11, resolution providing for summary publication of ordinance number 2020-18. Kim, do you mind introducing that?
I don't mind at all. The resolution just allows for a summary publication in your legal newspaper. If you do not approve this by resolution, the whole ordinance would have to be published, and it's very expensive.
I'll make a motion that we approve by resolution number 2020-11.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Could you take roll call, please?
Councilmember Schroeder,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bashad,
Yes.
Mayor Zeller.
Yes. This is actually item E. It's labeled D.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
Typo.
Yep. It's all right. See, you're not perfect. You're darn close, but consideration of Coronavirus Relief Fund CARES Act. Neil, would you like to handle it?
Sure. The city received $24,109 from the state of Minnesota, which is really the state distributed money that they received from the federal government. And the expenditure of these funds has to follow the federal rules. It's one of the things that I think there are certain rules in terms of what qualifies as an expenditure. And in there, they have to be necessary to meet the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19. The cost can't be accounted for in the city's budget is number 2. And then number 3, the performance or delivery of any goods or services and the payment for those funds must be completed during the time frame set by the state. Time frame set by the state is, believe it or not, on a Sunday, November 15, and then any unspent funds need to be dispersed to the county. The follow-up from that is if the county has undispersed funds, by the end of the month, they disperse them back to the state. The one item in here that they made clear in the federal guidelines is that personnel expenditures, so wages and fringes and whatnot, for public health and public safety employees qualify as
Reimbursable expense.
Qualified for reimbursing expenses. So where does that leave us? I took a look at what we have paid the sheriff's department. And when you look at our kind of, the budget for the sheriff's department, actually it's the first, the invoice that we paid, I think back for January through June, we ended up making that payment. That spelled out what percentage of it was wages. And so what I've done is I've taken that percentage times what we paid them and said, that's an eligible expenditure.
Mm-hmm.
For the fire department during this expenditure period, we've made 3 payments. I looked at their, through October 31, Tom had submitted their financials, and it came to that 56.2% of their expenditures were for personnel. So I took what we paid them and said, here's 56.2%. When you look, in addition, the city has directly paid, I think, as Mayor Zeller referred to previously, we have funds that are going to the Lake St. Croix Beach for the audiovisual retrofit. We paid for a computer that will enable Kim to function better. And then we also paid for desktop shields for elections. So looking at all of those, there is $882.49 left. The portion, and I think the intent from the federal government with regard to the personnel was that there are a lot of, they're making a policy nationally. And a lot of communities rely on income tax, sales tax, things that are impacted by businesses to generate those revenues. And what they didn't want is people to say, well, my revenue stream's down, so I'm going to start laying off public health and safety people. So I think that's the reason they put that exception in there, is saying your police, your fire, your public health people, we're going to distribute money so that you're covered at least through this expenditure period. So what that would allow the city to do here is to retain those funds, the personnel portion of those funds, and then at the discretion of the council, potentially remit a portion of those to the fire department.
Okay. Thank you. And I appreciate you bringing that to our attention, because that really kind of evolved or developed here over the last week. Up until that point, our council's taken a pretty conservative approach with that money. We haven't been looking for creative ways to spend it so that we didn't have to send it back. That was never really our mindset. But you brought this to our attention, and not that I doubted you. I had already put a phone call into Commissioner Kriesel prior to your email because I understood that the fire department had expressed a need for some overruns. So he put me in touch with Kevin Corbett, and I don't like to quote people directly, but he sent a similar message, very, very similar message to what you're telling us. And I think you then even followed up with
Tabitha, the finance director.
The finance director. So there are always a million ways to interpret these things, but I think we've done a good job of confirming our methodology here is consistent with the intent. I'd like to continue to take a conservative approach here, and that if we proceed as Neil is recommending, that we put that reimbursement money off to the side, and let's make sure all the dust settles and that there aren't any questions that come back, and I guess I'm saying let's save it before we just go spend it, whether it's on a road or whether it's on whatever in another area of our budget, because it is a reimbursement.
So do we do anything with the last $842, or we just keep that?
Well, that I think we have some. We can, if I don't want to quote you either, but we can retain it short term, and if the fire department can provide us some hard receipts, then we can.
I was kind of hoping that they would get us something hard. I mean, short term we really can't, because we have till Sunday.
Yeah.
And I would like to, I was hoping that maybe they could come up with something. But even looking at their budget is, when their expenditures are pretty much in line with their budget, and I don't see anything that is that dramatic. I know that they've received quotes for some equipment, and I looked at the city's proportion of their budget is like 5.25% roughly. Yeah. And, the problem there is the requirement that performance and delivery has to occur by November 15th.
So here's my thought, because I understand what you're saying. For the purposes of approving this tonight, can we make it contingent upon them providing that documentation? Because my thought is they're rolling these trucks out. They've had to have incurred, whether it's PPE or I'm sure that they've had to do their individual screening and those types of things. They just had to have incurred a proportionate share.
And I would think it would be fair that the city, recognizes that.
Yeah.
And then we can ask
but
them
we need the paperwork
for
to support
supporting
it.
Documentation.
Yeah. I guess that's my thought.
I asked Jim late last week about this, and I specifically referenced PPEs, and he did not give me anything on those. He did give me the other stuff that you guys have seen, and I've always I've been thinking about this a lot, and well, Tim and I have been talking about it a lot too, because one way or the other, any expenses they incur through this are going to end up, our percentage is going to end up here. Yeah.
If they don't take it out of their reserves, but yes.
Yeah, well, they've already done some reserve extract at this point.
Yeah.
Just every year we budget extract from the reserve, and it looks like we're on budget, but sometimes we don't use it, sometimes we do. And so you're right, but somewhere along the line, whether it's coming out of reserves or not, we end up paying for it at some level. So I'll get back to Jim, or Tim and I will get back to Jim and say, okay, what have you paid for already?
I think it's critical, and I don't mean to put the onus on you, but if you're willing to carry that, we really pretty much have to have that answer.
Right, we have to have
by
it this
Sunday.
week.
We need it
We have to
tomorrow.
have the expenditure,
Yeah.
a record of the expenditure, or the expenditure has to be dated by Sunday.
We would actually need to cut the check.
Oh, by Sunday?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean,
But I mean, I think you could probably go under the presumption that out of that $800, that is the minimum that you're going to reimburse them,
Yeah.
right,
and I would treat it as such.
okay.
Okay, so if we,
Until otherwise,
Yeah,
right.
then they're gonna have to submit, the
right,
documentation.
I mean,
Right.
these other things that they've got here are something else, but yeah, we're looking for something that was spent
Yeah.
before today.
Yeah.
Basically,
They do
yes.
have stuff, yeah.
Okay. So with that, I'm assuming you need a motion, and is it no motion?
I don't even think we need a motion. I
Okay.
think we just needed some clarity.
Are we on the
that
same
we were
page
going
though
to
with the
apply the
expenditure,
funds.
John?
What's the penalty just say whoever's checking on this, okay, eventually, what is the penalty if you've appropriated money in a
You'd
way
probably,
that's...
let's put it this way. The federal government, has the right to audit because these are federal funds. And, they are gonna audit how many governmental entities receive money. So your potential penalty would be probably the funds that you retained, you'd have to pay them back.
Right.
Right, I mean, there isn't a large interest on it or anything.
No. And I mean, we're talking about that amount we're setting aside to cover PPE and other, personal protection equipment by the fire department is, $882.49.
Right.
And specific to the sheriff's department, the county is not taking those wages as a reimbursement. And I was told specifically so that the communities could. So I feel like we've got a paper trail here where we can defend the decisions we're making.
Yeah.
Kim?
Mayor and council members, I will also add, you can, on that report, put projected costs for December, and then hang on to those dollars and get that documentation. What has to be done tonight is that the checks have to be signed and written out, and you decide where they're going.
Okay.
Because that
But
has to be dated
if
by
we're
the
retaining the
15th.
funds, we don't have any
Yeah.
checks to send out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's another thing, I know other cities, I know they bought iPads for council members. I don't need one. I don't know if other people do to cut down on the paper. And I know the fire department was looking at that too. That's something we could.
I
do
think
with that fund,
I
but-
mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we talked about that a couple
Yeah.
months ago and just decided that was kind of coming up with ways to spend the money.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced we'll use it. I mean, I have an iPad for
Yeah.
Washington County CDA and I never use it. So for me, that's just a waste.
Okay.
But
And I know
it is an eligible expense.
And I'm
or
saying,
arguably.
yeah, and I know on the fire board, there's maybe one new person, maybe two, that would be a good resource for them, because I know they only have one laptop,
Well,
but.
again,
that's
our
through the fire
allocation
board.
goes to them and how they
Right.
how they disperse the funds is their decision,
Yeah. Okay.
right? Okay. I think we're on the same
Yeah,
page. You feel
okay.
like you got the direction you need?
I do.
All right. Again, thank you. Appreciate your hard work on that because there was no clear answer, and we were all
Thank you.
Not
interpreting
clear.
it
And then, I mean,
differently.
the funds that you can retain, you always have the discretion to spend them
Right.
at a later date. I mean, it just enhances.
Because it is a reimbursement.
Yeah,
Yeah, so, I mean, we can allocate that however we want.
right.
Okay. All right. Well, that seems reasonable to me. Thank you. We'll move on to item 5, council and staff reports. City clerk.
Mayor and councilmembers, I don't believe I have anything tonight.
Would you do me a favor? Would you comment on the election? Because I thought that our volunteers did an amazing job as usual, and
They always do. They're absolutely wonderful and friendly, and at times get bored. There's not a lot of activity, but they did great. Did you have fun?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're not really volunteers.
No, you did get paid, but not near enough,
not near enough.
especially during a pandemic. So thank
And I
you
think they
so
get
much
fed
for your
well.
service.
Yeah.
I
It
think we
couldn't
had
be
over-
held without you. So
I think we had over 90% that voted,
that's
And
wonderful.
40 plus of it was early voting.
or 78, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's high.
78 people.
And I will just note that the results were not official until after 5 p.m. Tuesday evening because they were still running any absentees. So now with the canvas and we have the numbers, it is official.
And we're going to have a 5th council member effective January 1st or 2nd, whenever we do our swearing in. So that's kind of fun too. Great. Thank you, Kim. We'll move on to council member reports. Tim?
I just want to congratulate Tim on his hard-fought campaign. Looks like he squeaked it out. And then the other thing is, I think the council knows, and I'm sure you guys all agree, that I think in the next year we have to be aggressive on doing some road improvements and getting serious with that. And I know we're building up some funds, so Neil can let us know what we have. And I think we need to look at doing a good chunk, maybe throw out there all the streets, how much to do all of them would be. I know it probably.
Well, there's no way we
Yeah,
have
I
enough
know.
money to do that, but
I know.
there is a schedule we're following.
Yeah, I know it is, but I know we need to do some this next year
Yep.
and get going on it.
Yep, I
So,
agree.
but other than that, that's about it.
John, how do you want to handle that? You're our streets commissioner. Do you want to get with John and then you just make your recommendation for the year? And then a second question I have, I know one of the larger projects that is on our schedule is Lakeland Shores Road. And that I think we're going to need to spend some time with the neighbors on, just because that's such a unique road. If everybody's not familiar, I mean, that road starts off wide, and the further down you get, it gets narrow, and then there's no place to turn around. So,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot of room to expand that, but where there is room, do we go halfway down and have a turnaround there? So that, I mean, it's just kind of a crazy road down there. I think we should have some discussion, and I think that road is 2-3 years out.
I think it's 23.
Oh, so not very far.
No.
So what we could do is maybe have John and John review and see what the status and upgrade, which ones are, some might have been deteriorated more than the other. And I think on Lakeland Shores Road, I think at the end, I know we talked about it years ago, I think there is plotted or something there for a turnaround.
I can tell you that
Cul-de-sac.
living on that road, there isn't going to be any decision that somebody's not going to be opposed to it. So the more discussion we have and the more input we encourage, hopefully the less negative impact we have. It's kind of there's a no-win situation there, but a discussion needs to take place.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, do you think Quinlan is, your road is one of the ones that needs to be done the most?
Quinlan is, but then, now driving, you just see, there's quite a few. I
Yeah,
mean,
but Quinlan, to me, that
Yeah.
the surface of it there is
Right.
really beginning to get a little pockmarked and that type of thing. And
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's just the top 2 inches as usual
Yeah.
that is
A mill
failing
overlay.
us. But it seems to me, as far as looks go, and then we have the problem down there by your house where we have those 2 little potholes that seem to come about, which could increase the cost
Yeah.
significantly, because I don't know what's going on underneath there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Quinlan and certainly Lakeland Shores Road are probably the 2 that are falling apart at a faster rate than maybe the other ones. But I guess it depends on whether you live on them or not. You know, I'll talk to John Brody, you know, sometime coming up here in the next month or so, and see what he thinks about. You know, if he could give us a ballpark figure on what it costs, that type of thing. You know, nothing that we have to necessarily go by, but at least give us an idea of what needs to be done and
Right. And I don't know what cities, I guess I haven't paid attention what other cities have any projects, but I'm sure some of them.
If we can piggyback on their
Right.
project.
Right. So, yeah, I agree with you. It certainly needs to be done in the next couple of years, for sure.
The good news is we have the money.
Yeah.
The bad news is that the streets aren't lasting as long as they used to. The mix just isn't what it used to be. Okay. Great. Tom?
Fire department was working on a long-range plan. I mentioned that before. There are a couple things that are going to be new in this one, and it's going to be a facilities maintenance schedule, because our building will be paid off in, I think, 24, and at that point, when do we need a new roof? When do we need to fix the parking lot? All those other things, because we as a city aren't going to continue to pay for the building unless there's something we need to pay for. And so we're trying to schedule it, build it so when the building is owned, we still have a plan that, and I'm sure it's going to have to be viewed by all the cities, but you know, we won't be taking as much money for facilities, but I shouldn't say that, but it's so it can be, the building can be maintained. The other thing involved in this, and it's been brought up by one of the deputy chiefs, who is a firefighter at the airport also. A lot of what's going on with the firefighters in their long-range look at things is the health hazards that the firefighters are involved in. And so that is part of the long-range plan too. And, you know, we do things currently today. We have a washing machine just for turnout gear that will remove the toxic chemicals and that kind of stuff. It's already in place, but there's more things like that they're looking at. And so I probably won't be involved in it, but somewhere along the line this stuff is going to come at us, and it's there's going to be expenses in them. What they are, I have no idea at this point. So that's all I have.
Thank you. John?
You basically just talked about capital improvement projects, you know, I mean, so, I mean.
Maintenance projects, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once the building's paid for.
Right. You know, once
We don't think we're just getting a free ride, is that what you're thinking? or
no,
what?
no. What I'm saying is that I will say, I'll say it this way: we are not going to have a bond or a loan to pay off anymore, and that's part of our quarterly bill.
But we're not going to say, what he's saying is there's going to be other expenses. So instead of saving that payment, we're going to still be incurring some costs.
Right.
Right,
Hopefully
and we-
less than what the debt
What
service
they're
is.
trying to do is come up with a figure, a yearly figure or a
Right,
quarterly
but
figure.
it's the same kind of schedule as roads.
Right.
You know.
Long-term improvement plan on the
Right,
building.
right. I
Okay.
mean,
I was just-
they're going to need a new parking lot. They're going to need a new roof. A number of things now that we're insured by the League of Minnesota Cities, which is a super program. We've got $1,000 deductible if the furnace goes out. You know, there are things like that now have kind of been taken off of that list because they're covered by the League of Minnesota Cities insurance policy. But there are other things that are not. When, you know, the garage doors openers go and that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
I'm sure Tim will be heavily involved in that.
Yeah.
John, do you have anything to report?
Just, you know, I can tell you that between Simon Worth and myself on the medians, it took somewhere between 40 and 45 hours total to do it. So if anybody can keep that in their mind for the future when we may be sharing expenses with Lakeland, depending on who's in charge over there. You know, it's just a good figure as to, what the actual time expenditure is. There's very little as far as actual costs involved other than labor.
Right.
Okay. And Tim, you talked about that brush along the side of the school there. I took care of that last week. Okay. And which was just growing out on the side of the road. I figured the school authorities had more important things to do, and I was thinking what a wonderful day to be outside.
Right.
And other than that, I'll try to get together with Parodi sometime in the next 2 months to talk a little bit more about what the future lies as far as expenditures go and where we might think about doing some significant road projects.
And as you know, John, they typically recommend that we let those projects like in February or March if we're hoping to do something.
Right.
But from what I'm hearing, contractor-wise, they were all pretty darn busy, but they're not as busy right now, and their schedules aren't full next year.
Okay.
So this might be a favorable year to bid a
Okay.
project.
Yep.
John would have a real good handle on that, but
Okay. Well, I will get hold of them sooner rather than later then to
Yeah.
make sure we don't miss any opportunities.
okay, great, thank you. The only thing I was going to mention is I saw in the newspaper today that some communities, Lake Elmo one in particular, and I believe Woodbury, are enacting an ordinance to control the protesting that can be done in front of an individual's house. And I think this is a reaction to what happened in Hugo, where a neighborhood was strongly impacted by some protesting. Kim, could I ask you to just look at that and see if that's, I can't imagine it's going to be an issue for us, but if we have an ordinance and it is an issue, we're prepared.
Okay.
Does that make sense to everyone? In case they show up at your front door, Tim, we can... I don't know how restrictive it is.
Yeah.
I guess I just would be curious to see it and if it has value or not.
You never know nowadays.
That's right. But that's all I have. Kim,
I just wanted to say congratulations on all of your re-election.
thank you.
Now you can stop twisting my arm now. Okay.
Oh, I do want to thank John for all the hard work on the medians. I did see him out there numerous times and looked great.
And he refuses to ask for help. So I mean, in the future, we're going to have to keep an eye on him when he starts working. We'll just make him accept some help.
Maybe we should get him a big.
We have a Citizen of the Year award. I've just been going all out.
Right. All right.
Could we
Fair
get-
enough.
could we
But
get
we
him-
did not enact that policy, just so you know.
Can we get him like a workum sombrero or something?
Something.
You know, some-
I
Yeah.
think we should get him one of those scorpions that folds down the back of his truck, the crash impact scorpion.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. There you go.
Of course,
I'll make a motion that we adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second it.
All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Although
Thanks,
your
Don.
truck might not move.
Kim, what else do you need on?